No bird has the power to transport you to the past like a great blue heron. No wonder, it's a creature that dates back to prehistoric times.
If you see one, it's an incredible thing.
But you don't have to venture back to Jurassic Park to see one. You need only go as far as Discovery Park.
To have these huge birds, 4 feet tall, nest in colonies in the middle of the city is, it's totally remarkable.
And flock to Discovery Park is exactly what these people are doing this Saturday morning. We tagged along as 24 of them hiked to Kiwanis Ravine for a rare chance.
The goal is to see the herons. They come back every year and they nest in the ravine in certain trees.
Heron habitat helpers Carol Burton heads up the group seeking to understand the strange creatures, and she's more than eager to help them.
They're incredible birds. They have that enormous wingspan.
Today is about more than the chance to see something cool. The group will learn why Heron Habitat Helpers is in a desperate race to save Seattle's official bird, the lengths the city is going to help them, the role technology plays, and why, despite it all, the bird's biggest threat may be a good thing. The story begins more than 2 decades ago when the heron first chose Kiwanis Ravine as one of their area nesting grounds.
Herons have particular requirements for where they nest, and their habitat is endangered in cities in general because of development. It encroaches on their requirement. They need a certain space, they need big trees, they need a buffer zone around because they're very sensitive about disturbance, especially when they're first coming in to nest. And so sudden noises and things will scare them away. This is the largest heron rookery in the city of Seattle. It's losing habitat all over, and we want to retain that.
As recently as 3 years ago, the number of heron nests here has plummeted drastically.
They come back to the same spot, they reuse old nests, they actually take twigs from old nests.
City leaders have helped stem that decline by restricting nearby construction from early February through the end of July. They've even awarded hundreds of thousands of dollars of grant money from the Department of Neighborhoods to help the birds. But City Councilman and heron lover Tom Rasmussen says the city can't do it all.
We may have to cut back on some of the things we're able to spend money on because the economy is declining, but I hope then that encourages more people to volunteer because we just can't afford to pay for everything.
And thanks to the 100-plus members and volunteers of Heron Habitat Helpers, the city doesn't have to do it all. The group spends untold hours every year writing grants to secure money from the Seattle Department of Neighborhoods. Money used to replace the trees that the heron use for their nests. That's because the trees are dying. The group even secured high-tech computers and cameras to spy on the birds.
Well, we're just using technology as a tool to help us learn more about what's going on now.
They do it because they say, herons say, a lot about Seattle.
This is a healthy city. That is a city where people and wildlife can live together, but there's no guarantee that that will continue unless we really work to keep that and to increase this kind of a healthy environment for everything that lives and breathes.
Despite all the help, the heron's biggest threat is one that leaves its advocates the most conflicted. Volunteers here are in a tough spot because last year there were only about 45 nests, down from the 60 the year before, but they say they really can't be upset. That's because while eagles are a booming threat to the heron and their young, the eagle population is finally rebounding.
We've had people say, well, you need to do something about the eagles, you need to get ospreys in to kill the eagles, but you can't. You have to let nature take its course.
But do you secretly root for the heron over the eagles?
No, no. Nature has to take its course. It will come up to balance sooner or later.
It's too early to tell whether eagles or habitat destruction will hurt this year's heron population.
And they're not benefiting us with their presence, I'm afraid.
The great blue heron are a no-show this Saturday morning. They can return to the nest anytime between mid-February and late March.
I think it was still worth it, regardless of not seeing any.
But 3 weeks later, the 2 hidden cameras among the heron nests let volunteers know the birds are back and ready for their close-up.
This is the video server access.
Heron monitor Pam Kahn is able to manipulate one camera to see and hear exactly what's happening in several of the nests. But she's more excited about a newly installed second camera, courtesy of the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife.
People will be able to watch a day in the life of a particular heron nest, and in the case of the infrared nest, around the clock, to see parents feeding their young on the nests, in the middle of the night.
Neighbor Tim Randall says seeing a great blue heron will give you chills, but wait until you hear one.
It's loud and it's intense and it's got an eeriness to it, but it's a very pleasant and natural sound once you get used to it.
Besides, he says there are worse things.
It's a better background noise than traffic and sirens and things like that, so we're happy to trade and have this instead.
The heron habitat helpers refuse to worry too much. The great blue heron may look gangly and out of place, but it's a proven survivor.
I'm sure the birds will long outlast our current technology.